Hello and welcome to this edition of Political Smackdown. I guess this is, Betsy and gentlemen, this is the Merry Christmas edition of Political Smackdown. We hope all of you, by the time you see this, are going to have or have just had a Merry Christmas. And we will be back with you next week for an end of the year / New Year's show. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We've got our regular crew, and just the night before we tape this on Friday, December the 19th, we learned that former Governor Jim Hunt, James B. Hunt to be completely accurate, passed away on December the 18th. Former Governor Hunt was 88 years old. He is the only governor in the history of North Carolina to be elected to 4 terms as governor. He served as governor from 1977 to 1985, 1993 to 2001. He championed early childhood education and development. He's responsible for the establishment of the Smart Start initiative, supporting pre-kindergartners and their families. He, for much of his terms, was much about raising school standards and teacher pay. He did Justice Reform Act, trying to prevent youth crime, and a myriad of other things. Regardless of your politics, Governor Hunt is an icon in North Carolina history. Andy, you actually knew him well, and probably Betsy too, but Andy, you may have been serving part of the time he was
I did his last term. You know, he is a fascinating fella, and the House leadership team always went over on Thursday morning and had breakfast with him, and he was the funniest guy. He would stage everything in the world. He would have where we would be out kind of around the staircase, around the lobby having coffee, he would have these doors shut, just like pocket doors. And when he got ready to come in, he would have somebody throw those doors open and he'd walk in. He was always about theatrics and all that, but he'll never be another one like him.
All right, Betsy, what are your thoughts and memories about Governor Hunt?
Oh, the North Carolina Democratic Party has lost a giant. He certainly shaped North Carolina Democratic politics. And for many years, like Andy can tell you, he picked who was going to chair our state Democratic Party. And he would come to Cleveland County. He loved Cleveland County. And that's maybe one of the last times I saw him was at Ruby Hunt's funeral to talk to him.
That's when I saw him last.
And he was just, and his wife Carolyn, and here they were from their cattle farm down there in Wilson. And he was a great person to get behind candidates. And we're going to miss him in the Democratic Party. And I know his family will miss him, but for the Democrats of North Carolina, we've lost a giant.
Well, Wes, his daughter, Rachel Hunt, is the lieutenant governor, and she's the one that made the announcement to the public on behalf of the family. So at least theoretically, there could yet be another Hunt running for governor at some point in North Carolina. Wes, as you well know, and all of you know, he only lost one big race in his whole career, and that was to Senator Helms in 1984. At that time, I read overnight they spent $26 million, which at that time was unheard of.
That was the record for years in the country.
But Wes, your thoughts about former Governor Hunt?
Well, I think when in modern history, when most people think of North Carolina, they think of Jim Hunt and Jesse Helms. Those are the two stalwarts that really define North Carolina, state level and federal level. And his is the name that comes to mind. No question, he was a great North Carolinian. I don't know that anyone will ever achieve 4 terms as governor. Again, don't know that anyone ever possibly could. He was that popular, that well thought of. Certainly a loss for North Carolina. And thoughts with the family, and yes, his daughter sort of makes this the next step from Max Gardner and the old Shelby dynasty. This is the closest we've come to a multi-generational real dynasty in North Carolina.
And when I went in 2000, when I went to my first Democratic convention in Los Angeles, we had a very special reception for Governor Hunt because we knew he would be going out. But at that time, if Al Gore had been elected as the president, he was going to be the Secretary of Education. And that's what our whole delegation was told. So he always wanted to be known as the education governor.
Well, Mike, I guess we've got a lot to be thankful for this Christmas.
Well, let me take it a step further. If he had won that U.S. Senate race, there was a lot of speculation that he would at some point been in line to run for president. Now, wouldn't that have been something?
I don't think there's any doubt.
That's
He was
true.
the one North Carolina politician that probably had the pedigree to have made that happen if things fallen differently. Well, we'll move on, but we did want to stop, and pay respect to the life and the accomplishments of former Governor Hunt. Well, we got some really good stuff to talk about now. Both Shelby High Golden Lions and the Crest Chargers won their championship game. Shelby in 3A last week, as well as Crest in 4A, or 5A now. They're called 5A now. And interestingly enough, Crest beat the James B. Hunt High School team from Wilson in the championship. So you can see a couple of those pictures there, but in the first quarter of the first game between Shelby and Kinston, I thought that whoever got the ball last was probably going to win. Nobody could stop
It
the
looked like a
offense.
basketball score.
I know.
But then in the second half, Shelby got that receiver for Kinston stopped by double teaming, it appeared to me, and they pulled away and won, 80-something to 40-something. I didn't write the score down, but congratulations to both those teams. I just mentioned one more thing, then let you guys take off on it. This is the 19th title in 39 years for Shelby Golden Lions. That is the definition of a dynasty.
Yes.
It is Crest's 7th and very respectable title number, but Shelby literally has been a dynasty. There's our colleague Roger Harris at those games with his grandchildren. Wes, take off on your thoughts about 2 state champions again this year.
Well, it shows the dominance of Cleveland County football, and this is nothing new. We've had multiple teams in the playoffs year after year after year. We've had multiple teams win the title. But Mike, at the end of the day, Shelby's 19 championships, I think they're the winningest program in North Carolina. They're one of the winningest programs in the nation. Of course, Shelby's been around a whole lot longer than Crest. It hadn't been that long ago. Betsy King's Mountain was right there.
Right.
Burns has been there. It's pretty amazing, and how fortunate for these young people from Cleveland County, but a particular shout out to Len Farmer, nearly 500 yards, 497 yards total offense, 10 touchdowns, most prolific quarterback ever from Cleveland County. Glad to see him go out with a victory like he had, but all these young people, just what a statement.
And the Shelby quarterback was not only most valuable in that game, but he got some other awards for his season, Land Farmer, and he set all kind of passing records for the state and in the history of things. Well, Andy, you're a former Charger. I know you're
Yep.
proud this morning.
I am. It used to be when I was there back in the dark ages when we rode our dinosaurs to high school, that all we could say at football was we'll see you at basketball season. That was about all we had. One year, I'll never forget, some of them, they kept saying, we're going to make a statement. We're going to stop this losing streak. And if we don't win, we're going to shave our heads. Well, Monday morning, there was a bunch of bald-headed teenagers running around Crest that morning. But it is amazing, especially, let's just stop and think about the size of Cleveland County, folks. I mean, to be able to produce consistently, not only with Shelby and now with Crest, but Burns and Kings Mountain cannot be just shuffled off. They may not have quite the regular winning streak that maybe Crest and Shelby have, but they're still strong. And I can't help but think it's the competition within this county. I hate that they don't play like they used to. I think that really was more interesting to me. But it's just amazing that we're able to produce this caliber of player in a small county of less than 100,000 people. It's amazing. Usually you see this in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Raleigh, Durham, that area.
There's certainly a lot of talent that has come through these schools, but in both instances, in the recent couple of decades when Crest has been quite successful, and throughout Shelby's, coaching has been a key.
Yeah.
They have
yes.
had excellent coaching at both of those schools. Shelby, going all the way back to to Casey Morris and Pearlie Allen back in the
Lloyd Little.
yes.
50s, 60s. Lloyd Little was assistant football, I believe, but he was the basketball coach.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of good coaches.
And all the Shelby players had the JT on their helmet for Coach Jim Taylor. Speaking of coaches, this was quite a tribute for him as well.
Well, Betsy, you taught in teaching as a young teacher at Shelby, and then taught in
I
the Kings
did.
Mountain system. So
All
while
those
you're not
years.
from here, being from Ashe County, you've been here long enough
I've
to
been
take
here
pride
long
in these
enough.
football programs.
Oh, yes, and when I was teaching summer school at Kings Mountain High School one summer, I taught one of the running backs from Shelby so he could go on and was very successful the next football team. But I also was there when Kings Mountain made it to the state championship. The only time we've ever done that, and that was like in 1998. And we lost the championship game, but to get that far, and I just hope they can continue to do that. But you never know with football teams, on any given Sunday. But I thought when I saw the score for the Shelby game, 84-41, I mean, like you said, Andy, that's a basketball score, and they said that this was the highest score of any football championship ever. And then to see Roger and his grandsons, Will and Ben, and how happy they were I know Roger was there, and they played at 8 o'clock that night, where Shelby played in the afternoon. But it was cold down there at the football game, but aren't they happy? And to 31-14 over Hunt, I think that it's awesome. I mean, nobody in Cleveland County cannot not be proud of Shelby and Crest High School for winning the state championships.
Well, congratulations to the Shelby Golden Lions and the Crest High Chargers, and we wish you much more success in the years to come. We're going to go to break a minute or so early so that we won't just start the next topic, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some new filings that have happened locally for political office.
Killing people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach and would you turn the other cheek?
How you doing today, ma'am?
Father, help us and some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love?
Education is our most powerful tool to improve and change our world. Hi, I'm Rhonda Benfield, your host for School Matters. Join me for a new program every other week with information from and about the students and staff of Cleveland County Schools. Discover what our schools are doing to challenge students and help them reach their full potential. You can catch us on Spectrum Cable Channel 19 or stream us live on c19.tv.
Welcome back to the second half of Political Smackdown. Well, filing for political office for the 2026 elections ends the day we're taping, December 19th at noon. And we're taping right now at about 9:30 in the morning. So there are 2.5 hours left, so there could be a few filings that sometimes happen at the last minute. But we have had some new filings, and I'm going to mention the local ones mostly, and then these folks can talk about any others they want to, but we'll talk about these first. Since last week, an expected filing for county commissioner has happened in that Laura Boggs Tharrington has filed. That makes 7 Republicans as we tape, with a couple hours to go for people to file. Still no Democrats through December the 18th have filed for Cleveland County Commissioner.
That's for 2 seats.
That's for 2 seats, 7 people running for 2 seats. On the school board this week, we did have a former school board member, Coleman Hunt, to file as a Democrat. So as we tape, as far as we know, there's only 1 Democrat has filed for 4 seats. And then there are 2 new Republicans that filed on December the 18th, Stephen Carroll Self and Rodney Eugene Fitch. I have to admit I do not know Mr. Carroll, but Mr. Fitch is a former member of the school board who did not run for re-election last year, but is going to run next year. So we have 7 for 4 seats as we tape on the school board. And then North Carolina House Race 110, Mary Silver has filed as a Democrat. has a charitable address and would run against the GOP primary winner, which will either be incumbent Kelly Hastings or newcomer Caroline Eason. And in North Carolina Senate 44, Rod Powell, chairman of the Cleveland County Democratic Party, has filed to run against Ted Alexander in the fall. At this time, there's not a primary in that race. So let's talk about those first, and then if we have time, y'all want to mention any of the others across the state, we can, but these are our local ones. Betsy, get us started. You see these new filings, and you're Madam Democrat. Are we going to get any Democrats these last 2 hours to file?
Well, we hope so. I mean, we've got some people who are talking about it, and maybe I hope they'll come forward and file and put their name on down on the dotted line. I think Roy Cooper is going to have more people in the race. I don't know how many people are going to run for that top seat, Andy.
There's 6 in
Yeah.
each Senate primary right now.
6, well, and of course the only name we really know is Roy Cooper's. I just, it's always interesting when it comes to filing, and we'll just see if people will do it. And it doesn't cost as much money to file for school board and county commissioner as it does for some of the other seats.
All right, Andy?
Well, I'm more interested to kind of see, nobody wants to challenge Paul Scott. I mean, it just seems like there's been zero interest in challenging him, and it's looking like unless something changes, he's going to get a free ride. So
It'll have to change quick. I will say in Mr. Scott's behalf, he has been all over this district in Cleveland County.
oh, he was at the Earl Christmas parade, and I mean, he has been very visible in all parts of the county, and he's making sure, like I had to make when I was going to Rutherford County, that he wasn't all about Rutherford County. He had concern about Cleveland County, and he's always done that.
Now, Wes, we've got some more Republicans battling for these seats with very little Democrat opposition in Cleveland County.
Yeah, and that, boy, things that sure have changed in
Haven't
just
they?
a few decades, haven't they? Yeah, 7 running for school board. That's going to be interesting, and we've got these all have the threshold, right? They've got to get 30% or more.
Yeah, but it's figured different because it's 7 for 4. You have to add all the votes together and figure out a formula, and I can't do that in my head.
But for that
Multi-race
commission
thing.
race, 7 for 2, with 7 running, that could really be interesting to see how that plays out. Whether or not we get a runoff there, I think the addition of Mr. Hunt, who's an incumbent running for school board, at least right now, is the lone Democrat.
He's not an incumbent, he's a former member.
Former member, thank you, you're right. But well-known, obviously has been qualified in the public's eye for this seat. That'll present an interesting race in November with only one Democrat running, if it stays that way, so.
Well, Andy, there are 4 seats on
Yeah.
the school board, and only right now, as we talk, as far as we know, 1 Democrat. A single shot vote by a lot of Democrats could have some power in that kind of
If
race.
we play this thing smart, we've got an outside shot of getting a Democrat back on the school board. But we can't go through all this gyration. Oh, we need to have a big primary. Blah, blah, blah. We don't. We don't have enough people out there to sacrifice in a primary. We need to get behind Coleman Hunt. He is a proven commodity. He's a proven winner. He has been able to win. He has been in the school system. He was at Crest when I was there, Wes. I mean, he is a solid candidate that I've talked to several of the Republicans on the current school board, and they have nothing but respect for Coleman.
I think that's across the board.
I think so. So, Betsy, we've got a shot,
I agree.
but we have got to work for Coleman.
Yes,
I mean,
we do.
we've got to.
Well, and you can
And we
bet
will.
the Republicans are going to work for their slate as well, whoever comes out of the primary.
Well, it will be interesting, and you will be able to check on the Cleveland County Board of Elections website sometime. Well, by the time you see this, you can check and see if anyone else filed the last minute. But we do have competitive Republican primaries for North Carolina House 110 that is local, and for commissioner and for school board here in Cleveland County.
And that's March 3rd.
And there will be a Democratic primary on the same day. You just will not have Democratic primaries unless there's a lot of filings at the last minute for these other local races. All right, well, let's move on and talk about a state issue quickly. North Carolina Speaker of the House Destin Hall has created a bipartisan, pretty large, select committee to study property tax reform in North Carolina. All of us have watched the reevaluations in the state in the last few years since the prices of real estate rose so rapidly in the early 2020s. And we have seen how that even with reductions in rates, in Cleveland County, for example, about 80% of the people got a higher tax bill than the year before. I know 3 of us 4 did.
Yes.
One of us 4 got lucky down there on the end with the glasses on. But
Count your blessings.
Oh, they'll get me next go round.
I have
trust me.
said, I think on this show and to you all and others, I have seen a somewhat of a property tax revolt unlike anything I've seen since 1980 when we had the Born Free Tax to Death movement in Cleveland County when I was a much younger man. And I think you're seeing a little bit of that in Cleveland County with some of these filings against our incumbent commissioners who, other than the tax reval, have not been, you know, controversial. So I don't know what will happen in Cleveland County, but I can tell you that in other counties, Rutherford, Burke, Catawba, Gaston, Cabarrus, all in the general area we live in, lost Republican incumbents after revals last year. So I don't know what they will do. The most obvious thing they could do in tax reform is homestead exemption amount going up for the elderly, veterans, and so forth. But there has been some talk about redefining the definition of revenue neutral. So that revenue neutral means revenue neutral, and so you get a number that would be revenue neutral really, and then you would make the law go on to say you can't raise the taxes more than X% above that for the next year, so that you didn't have like we had where people's values doubled and their taxes in Kings Mountain, for Kings Mountain City taxes literally doubled on your Kings Mountain tax if your property tax value doubled in 1 year. So, Andy, you've been in the General Assembly. Wes has been there for a while. You always hear a lot of complaints, but I think the legislators are catching Hades about property taxes going up so much.
Well, they are, and this is the dilemma that local governments have. That's basically the only way they've got to raise money, unless you're like Charlotte-Mecklenburg and they've got every kind of side tax, rental, franchise tax, restaurant prepared food tax. They've got all of that, but here's the thing. It all comes out of the same pocket.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what you call it. I mean, it's still going to come out of your pocket. And county commissioners and city council members, example, and I did do this, Mike, you don't ever give me credit, I did vote to repeal the food tax. And you never gave me credit for it. We cut 4 cents off of it and held the local counties harmless, and we maintained their 2 cent part.
Problem I have with that's the only tax some people paid, and you let them not even pay it.
Oh yeah, and you whine about your liquor tax going up too. So I didn't worry too much about that. But anyway, that's where it all comes back to is you've got to be able. Are you going to hold them harmless? Are you going to pull money out of state budget? I mean, it's a terrible dilemma, and I'm glad they're going to take the time and have this committee. It should have been a long time ago, and let's really look at it.
Well, Wes, what do you think about the reform movement and trying to see if they can make some reforms?
I think the most likely reform will be similar to what you discussed earlier, limiting how much it can go up each year above revenue neutral. Andy, I agree, this is way past time, but if you limit how much the local government can take from property taxes, you got to figure out where they're going to get the rest of the money.
Because the bills are coming due
That's
regardless.
exactly right.
Yes.
It's coming from
Here's
somewhere.
the thing to realize. Counties and cities have gotten into a lot of things that are legal but not necessary. And the question is, do the people want those things enough to pay for them? And
And that's the way it needs to be presented. You have a choice. Do you want this?
But the reality is, in cities especially, and probably in counties as close to this, but cities have fire departments, whereas the county in Cleveland County doesn't have a fire department. You have fire districts and pay a separate tax for that.
That's true.
But in Shelby, over half the general fund budget, I'll assure you, it was when I was there, and I can't believe it's changed. Over half the budget is just police and fire.
But one of the problems, to take it one step further, Andy, you've got the more rural, more poor counties, particularly down east,
Oh, yeah.
Scotland, for example,
Greene County,
their
all that.
values are static or going down, and those local governments are forced to raise revenue, whereas in Cleveland County, the valuations are going up. So the county commissioners were able to go revenue neutral. I wish the city of Shelby and Kings Mountain had done similar. But these eastern counties, the poorer counties, really have a problem when they don't have the development. And we can fuss about the development coming into Cleveland County, but that's what helps maintain our rates staying relatively low compared to some of these others. The state's going to have to figure that out, and to have a 26-some person committee, that's tough.
Well, Betsy, you saw some increase. What are your thoughts on this committee, and
Well,
can it do anything?
Well, I hope they can. I mean, I know that when you have committees and committees and committees in the General Assembly, but I really hope they can. And I hope they can come up to where it's reasonable, and that people's taxes we can have the benefits. And it's like Andy says, you know, what do the people want? Do you want hospitals? Do you want fire departments? You got to have taxes. And so I'm going to go pay my taxes because I know how much we need those kind of benefits.
Well,
But are you paying your fair share, Betsy?
Yes,
That's the
I am.
question we
Well-
all have.
I think I'm paying my fair share as it relates to the casino up the
That's
road.
in the eye of the beholder, Wes.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the lightning round. Andy?
Well, I just want to talk a few minutes about Governor Hunt. I'll never forget the first phone call I got from him when I had won. He was watching NC State basketball, and I forget who they were playing, and I was trying to have a conversation, and all he wanted to do, get your arms up, get your arms up. And he was watching the ball, and I want to say, Governor, if I bothered you, you're the one that called me. But everything he did, he was like that. He was into it all the way.
You know, he was a graduate of North Carolina College before it became NC State University, but then he
I'd
got his
forgotten
law
that.
degree from UNC.
So he was
He
split.
did.
All right, Betsy, your lightning round.
All right, President Trump is traveling to Rocky Mount today to make his case that the economy is really good. But 72% of Americans have a very negative view of that economy being so good. And the lies they told about how the price of gasoline and turkeys fell during Thanksgiving, I don't think it really happened that way. And so in all of his, and he also promised in his speech this week, $1,776 in checks to nearly 1.5 million U.S. service members to go out before Christmas. I just don't think he can get it done.
Wes?
Well, I ran across a chart I thought was interesting, and I think y'all will appreciate seeing it. The price changes from January 2000 to June 2022. If you look, the red is increase, things cost more. The blue are things that cost less. You see TVs have really dropped in price. Hospital services, on the other hand, are the highest. If you look at that overall inflation line right there in the middle, virtually everything above that is government controlled in some way or another. Everything below that, the government has very little input in. So you want lower prices, let's get the government, let's get the regulations out of the way and let the market take care of it, Mike.
All right. On December 17th, North Carolina celebrated the 122nd anniversary of the Wright brothers' first powered flight. There you see a picture of it. They chose the Outer Banks because of the steady winds and relative isolation. They piloted several flights that day. The longest one was 852 feet. But North Carolina has always been known as first in flight because of these gentlemen. Merry Christmas to everyone.